Good afternoon. My name is Brian Lee. I'm your MC and moderator, president of the Calgary Leadership Forum. And welcome to the Calgary Signal Hill debate, and as part of the longest election campaign in the history of Canada since 1867, 146 years. Can you hear me loud and clear? How's that? There we go. So you're wondering what I'm doing here. The Calgary Leadership Forum is sponsoring all 10 debates, all 10 constituencies for the federal election, but I have to say, looking at it, you're positive, innocent, naive faces. It reminds me of the last time I was asked to speak to a group like this before I got into politics. I was asked to speak to the latest auxiliary of the Historical Society of Balzac, Alberta. I practiced my speech very much like I'm sure the candidates have been doing. I drove out there, all 8 of their members showed up. The chairlady was so excited. I gave my presentation, only 2 of them fell asleep. And afterwards, the chairlady came up, she's so excited, she said, "We raised so much money, Mr. Lee, that next year we can afford to have a good speaker." Can you hear me in the back okay? All right, good. Well, history is very much alive in our times. Last week we had the U.S. Republican presidential debate on Wednesday, the leaders' debate here in Canada on Thursday, and now Signal Hill on Sunday. And to cap it off, there's a national dead heat in the polling between the 3 major parties. So history is very much of significance at the moment. Now for those of you who think that, well, this is pretty safe territory for certain candidates, you may recall the last provincial election. It's not on at all. So I'm going to call in Michael Smith, our consultant, to make sure that we actually have turned it on and the volume is up. How's that? Is that better? All right. You may recall the last provincial election, no one was expecting the outcome they did. So one vote can make a difference. And I recall about 15 years ago, I was participating in a nomination campaign in East Calgary. One of the candidates was Gordon Trigg. And I remember when the election results came out, the place was packed. There was 1,500 people that were certified to vote. And they announced the results, 764 for his opponent, 765 for Gordon Trigg. He won by 1 vote. And I remember going to the victory party that night, and everybody I met said, "You know that 1 vote? That was me." So, and they were right. I ran into a friend last week that said, I asked him about the campaign, and she said, "I'm scared about the outcome of this election." I'm not so sure I'm scared, but I'm certainly focused. Justice Louis Brandeis, who the Calgary Leadership Forum likes to quote all the time, said, "The most important political office is that of private citizen." So ladies and gentlemen, this is when we take back the power that we send to Ottawa, and we hang on to it, and we decide who to give it to. And we have 5 candidates, 4 of whom are here tonight, this afternoon. We've drawn for the order for the opening remarks. The first will be the Green candidate, Taryn Norn, if you'd like to stand. The second, for the opening remarks, will be Ron Leichert, the Conservative candidate. The third will be for the NDP, Callis Abbott. And the fourth is Libertarian Tim Moen. Now, I received word 2 weeks ago that the Liberal candidate could not join us, Carrie Kundal. We're very sorry about that, but her representative, Cara Levis, is here, and she will be available to answer questions at the conclusion of the event, but she will not be participating, and she has not been selected by, not been nominated by Elections Canada. So let's acknowledge Cara for being here today. Just a little bit about the Calgary Leadership Forum. We do 3 things. We hold debates and forums. We've been doing this now for 5 years, a lot of them. We hold private receptions with thought leaders, and we do policy papers and white papers. So if you're interested at all, there's a little document that's been handed out, and we certainly invite you to participate. But let's focus on what's at hand here right now. Would you please turn your cell phones onto quiet or vibrate, so we don't hear from your relatives during the middle of this presentation. Let me give you a quick overview of our agenda. We've already drawn for the speaking order. We're going to open with a 5-minute opening statement by all candidates. There will be a 3-minute closing statement by each candidate. And then there's an opportunity for questions. And the way we've handled it is this. We posted online on 3 different websites. We solicited questions before this debate, and you all have a file card, if you requested when you came in, that you can submit a question. So after the opening remarks, we're going to take a 3-minute break. We will collect your questions, and our question chair over there and a panel will be selecting them. We want to make sure we get to as many questions as we possibly can. So, I'm going to ask our timer, Marilyn Wilson. We'll just explain how the timing will work. And by the way, we do this because everybody has good intentions, but some candidates seem to forget the deadline. So here's what's going to happen. For the 5 minutes that's been allotted, Marilyn will stand at 4 minutes and hold the yellow card. So if you'd like to please stand, Marilyn. She will sit at 4:30, and she will stand at 5 minutes. Please stand again with the red dollar store bag. So gentlemen, lady, when that bag is up there, people are going to start to groan. So we do this because we really do want to give everybody a fair and equal opportunity to participate. All right. So in order selected, would you please welcome, representing the Green Party, Taryn Noren.
There's a cord up here, so sorry about that. Alright, well, I get the honor of going first, so bear with me. Thank you all for coming out today. It's fantastic to see so many people. I'm sure many of you have lots of questions about the Green Party, because we're a little bit smaller and less well known. Some of you may know a lot about the Green Party, some of you may know only a little, some of you may just be curious. So hopefully in the next 5 minutes I can give you an idea of why the Green Party is here and why I am here. So the reason that I am here, the Green Party and I are both here because we believe that Canada has the potential to be a leader in this world. We believe it has the potential to be a leader in economic diversity, it has the potential to be a leader in environmental growth, and it has the potential to be a leader in proportional representation, which is democratic reform. So we're not actually a one-policy party, as sometimes we are known as. So the Green Party and I, as some specific things, as I mentioned, we stand for proportional representation. We stand for diversifying the economy to include clean energy. We stand for electing members of parliament that are honest, ethical, and hardworking members for their community. We are here to protect our seniors, and we're here to invest in our future. So I am here, and I'm running, because I believe that the Greens are the best hope for a great future for Canada. I want to be that honest, ethical, and hard-working member of parliament for you. I have a background in interdisciplinary leadership studies, and I've been very fortunate to have experience working in the Alberta government with the PCs, in the New Brunswick government with the Liberals, and overseas with non-governmental organizations. So I've been quite a few places, and overall, I believe that the Greens are the party that's going to be the best hope for the future, and they're the ones that make me feel the most passionate. Now, all of this said, that does not mean I am at all an expert. In fact, I'm not an expert, but I actually think that that works in my favor, because instead, I am open to new ideas, I'm open to new ways of thinking, and most importantly, I'm a listener. My background gives me the chance to be a facilitator of the experts, which is you. The constituents of Signal Hill are the experts. We have diverse backgrounds in industry, in economics, in education, in healthcare, and social programs. The list goes on. So my job is to be here for you and to listen and facilitate healthy discussion on what's happening for Canada and what needs to happen for Canada. And that's my expertise. My expertise is as that facilitator, so that when I go back to the House of Commons, I can bring smart, diverse, and holistic decisions and answers back to our government. So as I said before, Canada has the potential to be the leader in this world. And that starts with a Canada that works together, and that starts with a candidate and a member of parliament that works for you. Thank you.
Moen Library.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming today. And it's a beautiful day, and to see so many people come out to listen to the candidates is very heartening. I would like to also thank a couple of elected officials who are here. I see Mike Ellis is in the back, as is our councillor Richard Voetmans, and we have a couple of former MLAs that I see Karen Kriska here, and of course Brian Lee being a former MLA. If I missed anybody, I apologize, but that's all that I've seen in the audience right now. This is before I make a few remarks, I'd like to just take a moment and say a couple of words about the other candidates who have chosen to run in this particular election in Calgary-Signal Hill. You know, it's a sacrifice when you decide to run as a candidate. You have to commit a lot of time, you have to probably spend a fair bit of money, and you have to take a lot of time away from your family. So I encourage I congratulate all of the candidates who have let their names stand so that residents of Calgary-Signal Hill can have a choice come October the 19th. I want to make a special note about Taryn. When I formerly was a MLA, and every year the speaker would have MLAs invite one or two constituents who were in high school to come and spend the day. They called it an MLA for a day. And so I'd send a note out, and I got two young ladies who volunteered to come and be an MLA for a day, and they were really quite bright students, and I thought they had a great future in politics, and I encouraged them both to get involved, and I didn't realize that 5 years later I'd be running against one. On October 19th, we're going to have a very important decision to make in our riding and in Canada generally. Our vote will be about leadership for the next 4 years, leadership at the national level, but it'll also be about a strong voice for our new riding of Calgary-Signal Hill. And I want to talk just very briefly about the leadership of our Prime Minister. I think Stephen Harper has shown that he has been able to steer this country, guide the country, through times that haven't always been that good. In addition to that, the Prime Minister has shown incredible leadership when it comes to public security and taking a strong stand internationally, whether it's with the Putin government on Ukraine, whether it's the Middle East, or really anywhere where democracy is being threatened. So I believe that the country is not in a position today to conduct an experiment, and in many ways that's what has been described at the national level. So I really believe that first and foremost we need leadership as a Prime Minister of our country, but we also, as I said, need a strong voice for our riding. For those of you that don't know me, I've spent time in the media, I've spent time dealing with the media, I've been with large firms, I've run small businesses, and I spent 2 terms as the MLA in this particular area of Calgary West. So I believe my experience can serve all of you well after October 19th, and I ask for your support on the 19th of October. Thank you.
Everyone, I'm representing NDP, Palace Ahmed.
Ladies and gentlemen, I lived like some golden time of my life in a country where even in the evening you see someone first, they say good morning. So first I was like, what is going on? Everybody says good morning in the evening or even just like in the middle of the night. So I asked, why do you do that? They said, no, we saw you first in this morning, like in this day. This was night, it doesn't matter. Still, it's good morning with you. So good morning, everybody. Because I'm trying to bring a morning for you. I'm working to bring a morning for you. My name is Khalis Ahmed. I'm a professional geologist. I have my wife here. She is a CPA and CGA. And I have 2 children. One is 8 years old, one is 3 years old. I know what does a family means. I know how it works when you think about doing something big and you do it in a small scale. So all of you, I believe, in last couple of years, thought about what is going on. We need a change. I'm sure you thought it more than once. So this is the time for change. And I want to say you that what is going on, what is going around, we don't see the Canada, what we got from our previous people. We can't get the same Canada in future if it goes like this. If you talk about leadership, I would say that everybody has good intention. I would say, I don't blame anybody, but every party, every political leader, they think about the betterment of Canada. The question is, then why we are different? We are different because we think it differently. And the direction we are moving now, it doesn't show that we are going for a better Canada. I can assure you that when I see that 1 out of 7 children, they go to school without the breakfast or without lunch, I can't enjoy my lunch because those children, while they are growing up ill health, they are growing up malnutrition, they are growing up ill education because they can concentrate in the school. So do you think it will bring us a good future? I don't think so. But I think if we don't step forward now, after, like about those reconciliation thing people are talking about all over, we have to do a reconciliation after 30, 40 years. We want to avoid that one. So you can ask me, you might ask me, why do you think like that? Because those children, our children, they are not growing up properly. We have to step forward to take care of them. There are too many things around. What can I say? NDP has a good platform with Tom Mulcair leadership for the families. We'll have a debate on here, so we can explain those things better when you ask questions. Then the question is, how can we help our children? As my Green candidate, she talked about we want to be leadership, right? I agree with her. I am a geologist, so I know what does it mean when $1 drop of the oil price. I know how many people in Calgary or Alberta, they suffer. I know it very well. So, as a geologist, I know that we have the highest hydrocarbon reservoir in the world. We have hydropower, we have wind power, we have sunlight better than any other southern country. So, if we think that in 20 years, we shouldn't follow anybody, we shouldn't follow any organization, we have to do our work together so we can make Canada the energy leader of the world. If we are energy leader in 20 years, that will bring us a prosperous life. People will get job now, people can take care of seniors, we can put enough money for our children, so we can get out of this problem. And our seniors, can you imagine that they worked hard for us and we're asking them, the Harper government is asking them to put 2 more years to work for this country. I don't get it. So together we can make it. And thank you all. If you have any question, I'll be very, very pleased to answer that one. And together we can make it. Thank you very much.
And to represent the Libertarian Party, Tim Moen.
Well, first of all, I want to thank Brian Lee and the Calgary Leadership Forum for putting on this debate and this series of debates, giving candidates a chance to interact and talk to their would-be constituents. I really appreciate the opportunity. And thank you all for coming out to hear what we have to say and giving every candidate a chance to say their speech. A little bit about me. My name is Tim Moen. I'm the leader of the Libertarian Party of Canada. You haven't seen me in any of the leaders' debates because, well, I don't know, they haven't invited me and I haven't crashed the party yet. So, but my background is this. I grew up on a farm in northern Alberta in a Christian household. I learned the value of hard work, of community, of helping others, of having a servant's heart, and of leaving the world a better place than I found it. That inspired me, those values inspired me to go on and get a career as a firefighter paramedic, protecting my community, standing up for the people around me, my neighbors. I see my job as protecting people from destructive forces. I've gone on to get a graduate degree from Royal Roads University in leadership, and that has propelled me to acting battalion chief and reaching the pinnacle of my career. But I left that all behind a few months ago for some reason. I'm not sure why yet. It was the best job in the world. But I just felt a calling. I felt the need to stand up for what's right. I see the country going down a dark path. I'm a person who shunned politics my whole life. And back in 2009, an event happened that made me realize that as much as I ignore politics, politics won't ignore me, my family, and my community. And I decided to stand up and get involved. In 2009, ambulance services, EMS, were centralized under the Alberta Health government by Health Minister at the time, Ron Leiper. And that dramatically harmed my community. It stripped from my community their ability to provide responsive, comprehensive emergency medical services to their people. It robbed from my colleagues, my professional colleagues, the ability to be proactive and provide the kind of health care to the community that they wanted. I heard stories from colleagues of mine in other communities that there was accusations of bullying, of arrogance, and this top-down bureaucratic machine steamrolled over all our efforts, our town hall meetings, our letter-writing campaigns, our meeting with town council and MLAs, and to this day, healthcare and specifically emergency medical services have been ruined by this policy. We have code red situations throughout the province. Ambulances aren't available to respond, and this is what happens when you centralize bureaucracy. So I became politically active. That inspired me. I became party leader. I was voted in as party leader last year, and we've been growing exponentially ever since then. Our party could be described as the Wild Rose, or very similar to the Wild Rose Party on the federal scene. We're here taking a principled stance for smaller government and communities. We believe, like the conservative philosopher Edmund Burke, that society is best organized from the bottom up, not the top down, around what he would call the little platoons: family, charities, churches, businesses, community. That is what society ought to be organized around. Those are the people who love you and care for you. Bureaucrats in Ottawa do not love you and care for you. When my family and I moved to Calgary last year, I took a look at the political landscape, and I saw that Ron Leiper was the candidate for Calgary Signal Hill. That's why I'm here. Edmund Burke would not recognize Ron as a conservative. I mean, he was there back in the 80s when Peter Lougheed signed the National Energy Program. He was part of the Stelmach administration that raised royalties and hurt oil and gas. He was an entrenched Alison Redford conservative. He thinks that implementing sales tax is a good way to balance budgets as opposed to cutting spending. He expressed open hostility towards Jason Kenney. I'm here because I'm worried that this is a symptom that our country is going down a dark path. My great-grandfather immigrated here from Stalinist Russia because of the freedom, the respect for property rights that capitalist society afforded him. He was able to build a life and flourish. And I love my kids, I love my family, and I love my community, and I couldn't sit still anymore. So if you want big government, you've got 4 options. If you want small government, I'm here for you.
To say Carrie Kendall's apologies for not being able to be here. This forum was scheduled at a time when she was unable to be here, and the organizers knew that. Ms. Kendall is traveling in Germany, actually meeting with Syrian refugees and the UN High Commissioner on Refugees in her work. And she would really like to be here to take questions from the audience of Calgary Signal Hill. So if you do have questions after this event, or if you would like to direct questions to me during the event, I'm willing to take them if the moderator will let me. But otherwise, you can meet me in the lobby afterwards to hear about what Ms. Kundal would say in this situation, or contact Ms. Kundal after this time, and she will answer your questions by phone or email. Thank you.
Just for record, we set this date and we had great difficulty finding common ground for all the candidates. It was not till 2 weeks after we set this date that I received notification from the Liberal candidate that she could not attend. I assured her I would do everything I possibly could to be flexible. I did not hear from her, and I did not hear from her last week and a half, so I'm very sorry that she wasn't able to participate. But we had to choose a date, and we had to move ahead. So thank you for the 4 candidates for the excellent opening statements. We're going to take a moment now to just pause, and if you would like to complete your question card, if you'd like to submit a question, we're going to try to get through as many as possible. I would also like to say that you may have noticed when you came in here there was a church service going on, and it kind of reminded me of, I was at a church service some time ago, and it's kind of familiar here. And just when it was over, the preacher was standing at the door, and a Texan, looked a bit like Dr. Carter over here, came up to the preacher and said, "Reverend, that was one hell of a fine sermon." And the preacher said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Why, that was just one hell of a fine sermon." The preacher said, "I'm sorry, this is the house of the Lord. You cannot speak like that." He said, "I don't care, that was such a hell of a fine sermon, I put $100 on the collection plate." The preacher said, "The hell you say?" So while you're preparing your questions, did I mention we are a not-for-profit organization? So under the direction of Bruce Lee, we have some volunteers who are going to pass the hat. Now, if you can see yourself to putting in $2, you'll receive our appreciation. If you donate $5, you'll get my respect. If you put in $10, you'll get a handshake. If you're good for $20, it's good for a hug. And if you would donate $100, I am having Thanksgiving dinner on October the 8th. So ladies and gentlemen, please get your questions. We'll be passing the hat here very quickly, and if you'd be kind enough to make a donation, we would appreciate it as well. Open your hearts. We'll see you in 5 minutes. See you soon.
Does anybody need cards?
Brian?
Brian, does anybody need cards?
Anybody need any cards? Right over here. Driven by idealism, participating in the last three debates, and they are representing Fair Vote Calgary, a Fair Vote for a Canada Action Team, and that is Mark and Anne Hambridge. Let's give them a round of applause. We honor you for what you do. All right. So while our panel is working on sorting through those questions, we are going to begin with 3 pre-selected questions. The first question is, and the way this works is, Ron will answer first, we'll go through the 4, and then we'll rotate who answers first thereafter. So again, we're going to get through as many as we possibly can, and by the time we get through our first 3, we'll have our next set of questions. So, first question, what is your party's policy regarding the refugee crisis? You stand up.
Obviously, it's not only our party policy, is this on?
There we go.
It's not only the Conservative Party policy, but it's also the party of the government of the day. And there's no question that this issue has touched the hearts of an awful lot of people around the world, including Canadians, but maybe especially Canadians. And it was only recently that the government made some significant moves to ensure that anyone who is seeking refugee status in this country, any application can be expedited as quickly as possible. The government also announced that there was going to be the matching fund for anyone who wanted to contribute as Canadians. But at the same time, continuing to ensure that as we go through the application process, go through the selection process, that our security is secure and that we are ensuring that it is people who we are accepting as refugees that will be contributing to the future of our country.
We recently announced that we want to stick to the number. Canada always has 25,000 or accepts 25,000 refugees, and that's what we're hoping to accept from Syria. As Mr. Lightberg mentioned, we also, the 25,000 that we do accept to Canada, we want to make sure that it's a process of making, once they arrive, that they are given, whether they need English lessons or school lessons or help getting into the community, help with housing, but they're actually allowed and able to have that help from the government. More so as well, the Green Party doesn't believe that the action we've taken in Syria has been acceptable. We want to be going into as a peaceful nation. Our reputation in recent years as a peaceful nation has seriously declined, and we want to increase that reputation back into that peace-building nation that we once were. And that means allowing more peace-keeping missions that are UN sanctioned.
Like the other leaders, I was heartbroken when I saw those images of the Syrian boy washed up on the beach. The conflict in the Middle East is creating a huge problem with refugees and immigration, largely in part to US-style foreign policy that has destabilized the region. Our party believes that immigration and refugees ought to be taken in a responsible way, and that involves opening up the doors to private sponsorship so that private individuals, churches, communities, businesses, Canadian citizens can financially look after refugees, bring them over, and be accountable for them in a way that so that they can be culturally integrated into a liberal democracy. We believe that that accountability link is important. There's no, I don't believe in quotas, I believe in a principled response, and that principled response is allowing Canadian citizens to sponsor refugees and help them out and be accountable for their integration into society.
Thanks for the question. My concern is, do we think why this thing happening now? Why this crisis arises? The thing is, what our party think, Tom took care, is saying that the UN suggested 25,000 refugees. We have to take it as soon as possible. And if anybody says they have to go through security check and too many other things like those bureaucracy, it is very funny because nobody will get in without a security check in Canada. So think about the child, think about the young boy, think about the victims, the mother, their children. They're crossing the river, they're crossing the ocean, they're crossing the desert. Think about them. You do want to hold them up for the security reason? They are not terrorists. The young kid who is not even 4 years, how can I say that he is a terrorist? So we have to think about it. And we want to follow the UN guided line for this. Thank you very much.
All right, we're off and running. The next set of questions, we'll start off with Taryn. Canada is technically in a recession, and with the collapsing price of oil and falling Canadian dollar, Alberta has been losing thousands of jobs in weeks since oil prices crashed. What is your party's solution to create jobs and revive the economy without adding to the deficit?
Thank you. We have a very long list of the plans that we need to start because the economy is a complex issue and it requires quite a diverse answer. The first steps, we really need to get infrastructure started. So investing in the small things, investing in construction, investing in getting buildings rebuilt so that they're actually environmentally friendly at the same time. We're also looking at diversifying the economy. Right now we have all our eggs in the bitumen basket and we need to start diversifying that so that instead of having this instability of up and down, we can start having a stable economy. People won't be losing their jobs. We can start relying on the jobs that we do have, and we believe that that's the answer: stability and diversity.
We probably differ than most of the candidates, or all the candidates up here, in terms of stimulating the economy. We don't subscribe to Keynesian economics. We're free market guys: Hayek, Mises, Friedman. Our plan is 5 points. 1, lower Canadian personal income tax, so a flat tax at 15% to allow more income to stay in households. 2, decrease corporate income tax dramatically to allow business and investment to pour into this province and into this country. Number 3, we would break supply management. It's not the government's jobs to pick winners or losers in the market. Number 4, we would reduce and eliminate tariffs to the degree we could to open up trade and allow businesses, people to buy the types of products they need to produce the goods and services they need. And finally, we believe in fiscal federalism, and that means decentralizing bureaucracy and red tape down at the provincial level rather than tying it up at the federal level.
Again, I will ask you to think about why this thing happened. We had a very, very good year. We had very high price of this oil and gas. So why couldn't we save some money that when there is a crisis, we can get out of this thing? We had very good years. Why can't we just tolerate 6-month recession? So my party, we always think about sustainable development. That means that has to go through hand by hand. The environment, the people, because if you can eat, if you can get your food on your table, because the oil price is down, that we don't want. We want a stability, so diversified economy, diversified program for different level of corporation. Like the small business people, they will get a break, and the big people, they have to pay their share to develop our country. You know, like in G8 countries, we have the lowest tax, and we are facing recession. Only we are facing recession within these G8 countries or G7 countries. Thank you very much.
Well, again, the Conservative position has been very clear over the last 10 years. Very much one of working towards a balanced budget, and I think that most people have just witnessed, I guess about a week or 10 days ago, where the final numbers for the 2014-15 fiscal year, so ending March 31, 2015, the government posted a $1.9 billion surplus. During that time, the government has announced a number of tax cuts initiatives, especially for young families, income splitting for seniors. In addition to that, the increase in the free savings account, tax-free savings account. So I think the government has brought a balanced position. We have to be careful if we start increasing taxes too much. We're seeing what's happening in Alberta right now. We've got a declining economy in Alberta, not necessarily anybody's fault. It's a global situation. But at the same time, as we pile on more taxes, that clearly leaves fewer dollars in the pockets. So we want a balanced approach. My minute is up. Thank you.
Moving well on time and moving well with questions. Question number 3. Leading off to Moen, please identify one specific Calgary Signal Hills constituency issue you are committed to accomplishing if you're elected that you are willing to be held accountable for.
I'm willing to be held accountable for the economy. We have a big constituency of people that, well, in fact, the whole riding really relies on oil and gas and Alberta flourishing in this economy. And so what we don't need is more tax and spend, centralized bureaucracy ideas. What we need is to unshackle the constituents in this area, to not overtax them, and keep money locally here, control locally here so we can look after each other and stimulate the economy that way. So if there's one issue that I think that's most important in this riding, it's allowing the economy to be freed up, allowing families to be able to keep what they earn and spend it on infrastructure, community needs, and their family.
I know the most credential, influential people live in Calgary Single Hill riding. The thing I want to change is, if you cross Sarsi, if you go to east part of Sarsi, and if you come west part of Sarsi, there is a lot difference. There is a lot difference. If you go there, if you walk there, you will see the children, how they are growing up. They are growing up ill health, malnutrition, and too many things. So I think what I will try, my part of the west part of Sarsi, we will have to pay for them throughout their life if they grow like that. So my request to everybody to come forward, do your share now so that we are not paying for those small children as long they are living in future. So I will try to request you change the leadership and change the thinking way so that we can be free and grow properly in the future. Thank you very much.
Well, our team has been working very hard since the 1st of August. We've been out door knocking almost on a daily basis, sometimes 2 to 3 times a day. So I've been asking that very same question to the thousands of people that we've met at the doors. And if there's one thing that comes across very clear in this particular riding is the fact that oil and gas is the #1 employer by far of people who live in this riding, whether you're directly impacted by it or not. And there's also no question that the #1 issue that we need to solve is our access to international markets. We need pipelines, whether they're to the west coast, east coast, south, or north. And until the government of the day has to take some stronger action to ensure that our product, which pays the salaries of so many people in this riding, that product can get to market at international prices, not at a $15 a barrel discount. So pipelines clearly are the #1 issue for the folks in this particular riding.
The thing that I have heard at the doors is also oil and gas. However, I've also heard a ton about small businesses. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about, is we have so many entrepreneurs in this riding, tons and tons of small businesses and people trying to make their living with those small businesses. And we want to see the red tape that they're constantly bowed under and they don't make it through to actually accomplishing their dream because of all that red tape. And we also want to decrease the taxes that they're forced under from 11% to 9%, so that the small businesses that employ so many Canadians and employ so many Signal Hill constituents are actually able to flourish.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to start moving on to our questions from the audience. Question: do you believe that 39% of the votes cast, which gets 54% of the seats and 100% of the power, is okay? So we'll start off with candidate. Do you believe that 39% of the votes cast gets 54% of the seats and 100% of the power is okay? First past the votes, thank you.
Yes. If only 39% people come out to vote, that I think that we have to work together, all the political parties, that why they are not responding to the change, because they are in a fear. In last 4 decades or more, they did vote for one party or another. So they actually forgot that they can make a change. They are in a fear, so they actually think that if we vote or not, it doesn't matter. It will be the same. So this is the time. I request you to come out for vote and change that attitude. Thank you very much.
Well, this clearly is the debate about whether first past the post or most number of votes accrued is enough to win. And I think that's a debate that we should be continuing to have in this country. As it stands today, under the system that's here, I want to get 51% of the votes, and then there's no debate about whether it's first past the post or not. But The other thing that I think is important is the fact that we typically, 1 out of 2 people who live in this riding typically won't go out and vote. And I wish that were higher. We will continue to do what we can, whether it's at the doors, and we see people who, for some reason, shrug their shoulders and say, it just doesn't matter, I don't bother voting. I spend some time trying to encourage them to vote because we have such a privilege in this country compared to so many other people in the world in terms of having a say in our democracy. And so, as I say, I think that debate is not a bad one to continue to have as we move forward. But under the Fair Elections Act today, that's the vote we have today.
Simply put, no, it's not fair. So the Green Party is, and myself, are champions of proportional representation. We believe this country needs smart, diverse decisions coming out of the House of Commons, and the way to do that is to have multiple voices. I believe that who you vote for should be representing you, and that's how proportional representation works, and at the moment, it's not how our government works. I don't like that we have an almost two-party system similar to the US. It's not democracy. Democracy is multiple voices, and that comes through with proportional representation.
One of the problems that we see with the first past the post system, of course, is that there's this worry about vote splitting. So people tend to vote for what they don't want rather than what they do want. And we would like to change that. I promote a form of proportional representation called single transferable vote. And other candidates advocate for that as well. I'm not a dictator, I'm a leader, and so I allow my candidates to endorse whatever system they think serves their constituents and Canadians the best. And we think it should be an open dialogue and that Canadians ought to decide. And I agree with Taryn that it's terribly unfair that your vote doesn't count unless your guy wins first past the post. So yes, that's it.
All right, so our next question.
Brian?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, he spoke.
No, you spoke already, yes. Yeah. Thank you. Will you support the Federation of Canadian Municipalities roadmap for strengthening cities, in particular for senior housing and infrastructure for funding shortfall? But this question might possibly come from somebody that has nothing to do with City Hall. Oh, there we go. All right. There you go, yeah.
I thought that was Richard Koopman's question. I think what we need to have is a stronger working relationship between all levels of government. And currently today, it seems like municipalities have their hands out to provincial governments have their hand out to the federal government in the way of transfer payments. And I think we have to move towards a system that gives greater autonomy to municipal governments. What that might look like, I think, needs to be negotiated. And you know, part of the problem that's buried in the question is whether or not the federal government should be transferring more money to municipalities. I think that there's got to be a better way than consistently having to go and ask for additional funds. And so I'd like to, frankly, see a new model versus whether or not we should be getting more money for a particular program.
I have to agree with Mr. Labert that at the moment we're working off of a document that was made in 1862 when cities were a lot smaller than they are now, provinces are a lot smaller than they are now. So the federal government took on a lot of responsibility. We need to create a better dialogue and hopefully a better system if that's possible, because right now municipalities are not getting enough money, provincially we're not getting enough money. We spoke about seniors. Well, healthcare is all on the province, but we're not getting enough taxes to the provinces to pay for healthcare, amongst other things, for example, roadways. And right now we have a lot of things, policies that are in certain areas of government that probably should be re-looked at and brought from an 1862 document and timeline to a 2015 document and timeline.
As I said before, we're big fans of fiscal federalism. Our job, the job of anyone in government, we we feel, is to get power closer to the people. And so we want to push down, we want the provinces to have more money kept inside them. We want them to have more control. And so, you know, this idea that the federal government needs to collect all this money, filter it through a giant, inefficient, uncaring bureaucracy, and then hand it back to municipalities in ways that they may or may not appreciate, with strings attached and all sorts of other caveats. We don't think that's the right approach. We think that we want to keep money and power locally. Fiscal federalism is the way to approach that, and we would see our cities flourish, and we would see far more money poured into infrastructure and creating the kinds of communities we would want.
Thank you. We always talk about social democracy, and we think that our municipalities, provincial government, and federal government should work together, and that's our plan. We have to work together to build up anything, everything. And I want to thank Mr. Ron Leppard to at least to say that it's not going on the right direction. And he has some responsibility too, because he was leading for a while, and he was responsible for too many things, at least 4 ministries so far I know. So it is our responsibility to get everything done and bring the change and make things together. Thank you very much.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is a Bruce Lee, and he's been chairing the question panel, and he's going to ask the remainder of the questions, time permitting. Would you like to give a round of applause?
Thank you. And you're right, Brian, this is a great-looking audience. Give yourselves a hand. In fact, it's the best-looking audience I've seen today. So, anybody hear the CBC interview this morning with the editor of the Financial Post? Yeah, after listening to that, I go, do we really need to have the candidates come out and say what they are going to do? So I like to call this the bare knuckle round. If you ever listen to debaters, it's going to take the gloves off, you really get about what you're going to do and why you're better than the other party. So, good news, bad news, there are 58 questions that I had to sort through. A record. Congratulations. 18 were emailed in, there were 40 handed in here. 28 different focuses of the questions, 14 made to one candidate, or rather more are focused on the NDP. This makes it a real difficult decision. So if your question doesn't get asked, I'm sorry. But the candidates will be here after, so you can corner them and get your specific answers. And the questions were great, but we have to kind of make it fair. So question number 1, and I'll modify the words to make it for everybody. So if elected, when will your party take leadership on Energy East and Northern Gateway pipelines?
All right, I know many of you in this room may not know about the Green Party. We are against both of those pipelines because we are against shipping raw bitumen out. We want to see refineries actually built in Alberta rather than just shipping out a raw product. We think it's healthier for our own economy and healthier for Alberta's economy if we can have refineries create jobs. Refineries create more jobs than more pipelines do, and then we'll be able to ship product out rather than raw product out, which is a higher which will be able to create higher prices and hopefully boost our economy. Thank you.
Living in Fort McMurray, in the heart of the oil sands for the better part of a decade, I have been a big proponent of oil and gas. In fact, I did some film work with Mr. Neil Young when he came up there, and then after he blasted Fort McMurray in the oil sands, called it Hiroshima, said we're committing genocide, I spoke out very strongly against him and his hypocrisy. So I'm a big booster of oil and gas, but I'm an even bigger booster of property rights. Property rights led to the industrialization and the ability to use fossil fuels to improve our lives. And so we need to respect property rights. And so my approach is that politicians probably shouldn't have an opinion about where food is distributed or how which route pipelines go through. They're there to protect property rights. And so if pipelines can be peacefully negotiated, government's job is to protect those contracts and make sure they get built. If pipelines can't be peacefully negotiated, it's not government's job to impose an agenda on property owners and say, we're taking your property and putting something on it you don't want.
For the pipeline issue, even we refine it, right? So how can we transport it? There's a question. So I'm a geologist. I know how much it is for Albertans and totally for Canadians. My offer is, if I am with the Tom Mulcair team, we will do all the development that is sustainable. We will do the environmental analysis. We will take care of our environment. We will refine things. If needed, sustainable way, we will work it together and with experts. And hopefully, as mentioned, that wanna be world energy leader, so we have to do what we have to do. So no fear. If anybody has a comment that NDP is against oil and gas, so they should realize that I am a geologist, I am an oil and gas professional, and I want to make sure that there is nothing to fear, and I will work for you. Thank you very much.
Well, I mentioned that earlier in my remarks relative to our most important issue in our riding is access to market. And I know the question related to Northern Gateway and to Energy East, but there's an equally important one called Kinder Morgan going to Burnaby. And let me just give you a little bit of history about that. I'll try and do it within a minute. Currently today we ship 300,000 barrels of oil to Lower Mainland to ensure that Vancouverites have gas for their cars because there's a refinery in Burnaby. So what Kinder Morgan is now proposing is to double the pipeline capacity of that pipeline so that we can start exporting an additional 300,000 barrels. Well, guess who's opposed to it? The environmentalists who live in Vancouver, who drive the very same cars that they wouldn't be able to drive if that first 300,000 barrels wasn't going to the Lower Mainland. So I think the federal government, I'm fortunate enough to be elected on October 19th, is going to hear very strongly within our caucus about pipelines, because it's time the federal government started to say enough is enough.
Number two, if your party and or leader stands on, oh, did I miss one? You just getting ready? Yep. If your party or leader stands on an issue different from that of your constituents in Calgary Signal Hill, how would you handle this? Would it affect your vote in the House?
I'm the party leader, so no, it wouldn't affect me. And, you know, I am a big proponent of candidates standing up for their constituents in their riding the way they see fit. We don't believe in whipping our candidates. We want them to be able to promote liberty for their constituents the way they want to promote liberty. And so even if I'm not the leader, I'll still protect my constituents.
My loyalty is to the humanity. My loyalty is for Canada. Then my loyalty is to my party. So if anything against humanity, against Canada, I'll try to manage it with my party. I have the influence that I can make them understand that it is against humanity. So I believe there will be no problem because I have a strong voice. I'll be your voice. Nobody can stop your voice. So be very happy that I can stand for you. Thank you very much.
Well, first of all, I'm probably the only one up here who's had the privilege of working in a caucus environment. A caucus is made up of elected representatives, in our case, from across the country, with a diversity of views, interests, and results. Now, when you work in a caucus environment, your job as the representative of your constituents is to ensure that the constituents' views are expressed. Once that discussion takes place and a vote takes place, you win some, you lose some. And there will be times when constituents of this particular riding may not win the battle when it comes to the decision that the federal government makes. But overall, the government has to take into account all of what the country's best interests are. And so my commitment to you as a constituent of mine, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected on the 19th of October, is your views will be expressed. But I need to be clear, those views are going to be expressed in a caucus environment and then decisions are made.
To be very clear, the Green Party is the only party with seats in the House of Commons that is completely against party whipping and completely against towing the party line. That means that if I do disagree with Elizabeth May or what my party believes, because I've listened to the constituents of Signal Hill and they've voiced their opinions, I can vote for my constituents, I can speak for my constituents. I don't need to vote for my party, and I will not be bullied, harassed, or anything else into doing that. So I'm here for you because that is what democracy is about. Thank you.
Number 3, thank you.
Number 3, thank you.
What will you do in this global knowledge economy to return support in Canada for scientific research?
For scientific research, I think, okay, I can tell you one thing. Like when people are going to the moon, so people thought it's just like spoil some money over there. And then people realize that when you are in crisis, we need water to drink, right? So because when they're going to a space shuttle, they are drinking their own pee process, right? So people thought it's like just like spending some money for nothing. It's not true. We can get it used when we need it. So scientific research is a must. We have to do that. Without research and analysis, we can't go forward. So I think that will be my first priority, to provoke everybody, to influence everybody, to do the research and analysis. One thing here I want to mention, that sometimes researchers, they do in their way. Like we have to guide them to get the best result and fact-related result, not like something they think about or something they want to get the result. The result should be fact-oriented. Thank you very much.
I'm going to sound a bit like my libertarian friend here because I think inherent in the question and how it was worded is whether government would be committing more money to scientific research. And while there's a role for government to play when it comes to research and technology development, I think what's really important is for government of the day to ensure that sufficient tax breaks are in place so that the private sector can do the research. You know, an awful lot of the research that happens in the world today is not done by government. In fact, I would say most of it over time has been done privately. But we have to ensure that we've got policies in place that will continue to encourage more research within our private sector.
Well, currently, the current government has actually done a great job of muzzling all of our scientists. And so right now we are not getting the proper information to the government, and we're not getting the proper information to the constituents. So the biggest thing with this issue is actually to stop muzzling the scientists and allow them to have a voice. R&D is very, very important. Research and development is very, very important to Canada and to allowing our country to move forward. But if our government is muzzling the scientists and not allowing that information to reach Canadians, then we're not going to move forward. So research and development is a public and private enterprise, but it's those Canadians and both of those working together and allowing Canadians to also have a voice in it that's going to move our country forward with that research.
Yeah, you know, a lot of the, in fact, the majority of the scientific innovations and advancements that have occurred throughout history have occurred in the private realm. So we're not a big fan of forcibly redistributing wealth from you, the taxpayers, to fund, you know, accounting hummingbirds in a particular region or something like that. The degree to which scientific research is publicly funded is a degree to which Canadians ought to have access to the knowledge that those funds are producing, and so there should be no muzzling of scientists.
Number 4, the campaign is recently focused on, everybody's campaigns have recently focused on the economy, yet climate change is the biggest threat to future generations. What is your party's long-term plan to address climate change?
Well, that's going to be difficult for any of us to outline in a minute, because it clearly is the one issue that continues to dominate discussion across the country and around the world. The federal government has taken a balanced position when it comes to climate change, because you can't start jumping in with both feet without considering what it does to the economy. There are actions that have been taken relative to coal. The government must be close to 10 years ago now, released its strategy around coal-fired power plants. But at the same time, we have to remember, when as Ralph Klein used to say, for every action, there's going to be a reaction. When coal comes offline in this province in the next few years, I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, your power bills are going to double. And so we have to make sure that as we're moving towards a greener environment, that it's not slamming you, the taxpayer, in the pocketbook. So I think it's a balance that you have to ensure that you can get between what's right, but also what's affordable.
So in case you haven't noticed, I'm the Green Party. So we have quite a lot to say about what's happening with our climate change. And again, this is something that I have about 300 pages worth of information. So if you want a more in-depth discussion, come see me. The main things I want to say, yes, the economy is important, but as an article in the National Post just wrote, you won't really care about the economy when we run out of water. And so I know that's a radical view, but these are things that we need to start thinking about now so that in the future, the economy and the environment can live in harmony. Right now, land use, water, what's happening, we have a rising climate change. We're almost at the 2-degree limit, and after that, things will start happening way faster than they are right now. And so we need to start making decisions now for climate change, because we don't have that long of a future until those effects start becoming an issue and start affecting the economy.
Industrialization and fossil fuels have allowed human beings to be able to survive the climate. You know, there's 95% fewer climate-related deaths now than there were 100 years ago. And so we need to allow people to have the tools, the adaptability, the freedom to adapt to a changing climate. There used to be glaciers, I heard, right here where we're standing. I don't think there's a human right called you have a right to climate stasis. The climate is a dynamic thing, and imposing on human rights in a giant government program to solve that, I don't think is the answer.
Thank you. Nobody should be left behind. That's what I would say. Because for climate change, if some people are suffering in the world, we should be responsible for that. I say my loyalty is to humanity. So we have to take care of that thing. As a geologist, I know this earth was covered by glacier at least 4 times in the past. And there was desert following that glaciation. So as we know, it's a dynamic thing. We have to cooperate with it. We have to go sustainable way that we can manage it. If we think too much about climate and don't do any development in the energy sector, and people can get food, they can grow without people, the value of climate or environment is nothing. Because you know, there are lots of volcanic eruption under the Atlantic Sea. Nobody call it a disaster, right? So we have to think about it, and we have to think about our people, human being, and climate. That's why we have planned to develop sustainably. Thank you.
I want to ask a fun question, but I want to get the energy level up. Would you just repeat what I say? Can we just have a little fun first? This means yes. Just say what I say. So I want everybody to say with a lot of feeling, say, I look good.
I look good.
Yeah, with a little more enthusiasm, I feel great.
I feel very
Very good. Now turn to one person beside you and say to them, you are so lucky you're sitting with me here today. You know, I thought it was interesting when Brian acknowledged Richard Ruben's question that the light went on over Richard's head. I was waiting for that music, you know, from the they hear from heaven. That's that time. All right, so this is the fun one. If your party wins majority in October's federal election, and if you're appointed a minister, what portfolio would you choose and why, if you had a choice?
All right. Well, I'm going to have to go with DFAT-D, and I may screw this acronym up, the Department of Foreign Affairs, Trade and Development. There we go. So that would be the portfolio I choose because I think Canada's role in the world is really important, and I think we've kind of lost track on the direction we're headed in the world. And so the portfolio I would most be interested in is how can Canada become that leader in our global world today.
I'd take on the role of Prime Minister. And tell Tom I have no hard feelings in him taking my hashtag TM for PM. To me, leadership is about giving away power. It's about empowering other people. And I think it's high time we had a Prime Minister that focused on ways of eliminating need for leadership. That's the very process of leadership. And so, Canadians deserve someone in that seat who's going to try to give power back to them, decentralize power, give it to the provinces. If I was a provincial politician, I'd be looking to give it to the municipalities. I think that's the role of leadership. So I'd be after the Prime Minister's spot.
So I would ask you people, because my goal is to make Canada the energy leader in 20 years, not right away. So we have to work together. So you tell me, which ministry you think I can work better? Because my goal is to make Canada the energy leader. And I think my background, my establishment, my experience and expertise, that will very much fit to make Canada as the energy leader. So I go something related to the energy. Thank you very much.
Well, I respect the question, and I respect that it's probably asked in fun, but I had the opportunity to be part of a caucus, and I also had the opportunity to be an MLA for Calgary West for 2 terms and held several cabinet posts. And I can assure you that if in some way it got out of this room and was interpreted that I was lobbying for a cabinet post, I would be in great difficulty with my leader. So I am simply not going to answer the question, because what we are doing today is we are seeking a member of Parliament. And that's all any of the candidates in the 380 ridings across the country are doing, is seeking to become the member of Parliament for the riding and the representative of the constituents. And if fortunate enough to be in government, and the Prime Minister of the day asks any one of those candidates, successful MPs, to be a Minister of the Crown, then that is a special privilege, but it is not something that one should be interpreted as lobbying for. Thank you.
Number 6, would you make cuts in essential programs in order to avoid running a deficit?
Yes, I would. I'm a big believer in cutting government. I'm sorry, but government is not a committee of virtue. It's a corporation, a body of people that uses force. And it's a hammer, and not everything is a nail. The thing that is a nail is human rights, is property rights, is protecting the individual and family and community. So I would do it in a responsible, in a managed way. I would engage the Canadian people. In fact, what I would like to do is allow people on their income tax form, as we repeal taxation, to have line items and determine where they would like their tax dollars to go and not to go as we repeal taxation. It should be up to you. If you don't want to fund a particular department, you shouldn't have to fund it. That would send market signals into the government, and we pretty soon see bureaucrats scrambling to prove their worth and their department's worth to you. So I think power to the people.
You know, like there is a saying, cut your coat according to your cloth. So when you make your coat, you have to follow your clothes. So if you plan for a deficit budget, sometimes it seems that it's not bad because it's a very crisis moment now, so everything is cheaper. So invest your money for infrastructure development and go for deficit budget. But I think if it goes deficit, that's okay, but you don't plan for it. Because if you go deficit for 3 years, and the election year you want to show that it's like we have surpluses by not paying the employment insurance people, not paying for seniors, not paying for other developments, that's not good. So I would say cut your coat according to your cloth and try to avoid deficit. We have good time, we have bad times, but we have to think for development. Thank you.
Well, again, I come back to what I said on a couple of occasions. I not only represent the Conservative Party, but the Conservative Party is currently in office and has made a number of tax cuts. But I want to just sort of expand a little bit on it, because as a government, you try and ensure that you do what's fair, and you try and ensure that tax cuts get to the right people that need the help. But I can tell you that one of the things that I learned during 8 years as an elected official is that everybody wants to cut spending. But what they don't say at the end of that is, as long as it doesn't affect me. Because we see that all the time, where people want to have certain programs cut that are not their programs, but they're somebody else's programs. And so I think you have to have a real balanced approach, and to just sit here and say, well, you're going to cut this or you're going to reduce that is quite naive, because that's why you elect a representative from each riding in the country and make those decisions as government.
Overall, we do not believe in cutting social programs because that's cutting into our future. And so social programs are what help build our country. However, that does not mean that we should be living outside of our means. And so, as many of you can appreciate, there is such thing as saving when you're in good times and spending when you're in bad times, Keynesian economics. And that's what I believe Canada needs. So spending on social programs isn't necessarily a bad thing, because it's investing in, whether it's investing in our education, investing in our seniors' health, investing in our healthcare system. All of these things will actually help the economy and help Canada grow. So we can't just say we should cut social spending, because that helps overall. And then we need to make sure that our spending is within our means.
Did everybody answer that? Yeah. That's what I thought. You're just so excited to get up there and answer a question. Number 7, what do you or your party plan to do with the Senate?
You know what is going in the Senate now, and everybody heard about it. So the Senate is not an elected body, they are not. So to represent everybody, to represent Canadian, we have a question. And we have a plan to review about the Senate. And our party don't support this present Senate system. I hope you understand, because they don't represent us, because we don't elect them. So an unelected Senate is not acceptable. Thank you very much.
I'm sure you're all aware that the Prime Minister has put a moratorium on any more appointments to the Senate until the provinces can come to an agreement on what the future of the Senate is. We have to remember it's easy to say to get rid of the Senate, but the Senate is ingrained in our Constitution. In our Constitution, we have rights of provinces, we have rights of the federal government. And until there's an agreement across the board, no one is in a position to abolish the Senate. I will make one slight correction with my friend from the NDP. Alberta is the first province that some 10, 12 years ago now decided to start electing our senators. And we actually have 3 elected senators that sit in the Senate today. I think if some of the other provinces would have taken some of the same steps that Alberta took, we probably wouldn't have the same kind of mess that we're in with the Senate today.
I agree with Mr. Liebert that right now the Senate is not what we need. However, it has a place in the Constitution of Canada. It is one of our 3 forms of government and is there for a purpose, is there to protect the provinces. However, we do need the reforms and we do need elected senators so that they're accountable to us rather than being accountable to the Prime Minister.
I think it's important that the Senate plays an important role, that sober second look. What scares me is the idea of a majority NDP, Liberal or Conservative government pushing through bills that shouldn't be pushed through. And right now the Senate is completely impotent. I think in large part, the other candidates have hit on it. It's because they're not elected officials, they're appointments. And so we would prefer to see some Senate reform, but not abolish the Senate.
Number 9, try that, number 8. What policies of your party will help lower income Canadians? How can you help lower income Canadians?
The government has taken a number of initiatives. I guess the question is, lower income Canadians already have a number of issues when it comes to the level of taxation that is paid and the level of support services that one receives. And I think what is important is to continue to see how those can be enhanced, how we can take some of the changes that we've made for young working families and ensure that that's driven down into those with lower income. I can tell you one thing, though, it sure isn't going to be helped by an $18 minimum wage. And so we have to be careful on what happens at some of the other provincial levels, but overall, continue to ensure that lower income has some of the benefits that currently exist, and how can they be enhanced.
To help lower income Canadians, we want to see a guaranteed livable income for all Canadians. We'd also like to see affordable housing. Right now we have quite a few housing bubbles across Canada that are making it very hard for lower income and even small new families to get into housing and to start that process. And we would in fact like to see the minimum wage increase, because right now, for example, in Calgary, the minimum livable income is $17 and the minimum wage is $10.25. That's a huge gap for Canadians, especially for young Canadians, for older Canadians, and those vulnerable sectors to be able to live in Calgary and in Canada.
So our tax plan will help the poorest people first. We plan to increase the basic personal exemption to $17,300. We have additional exemptions for seniors, for disabled, for parents, and for students. And so if you're a family of 4, you can expect not to pay, or just a family of two even, you can expect not to pay any income tax on the first $43,000 and change that your household brings in. In addition, we don't believe that big government programs help the poor. In fact, we think that in the long run it harms the poor. No one has mentioned here monetary policy or inflation. You know, the fact is, if you're 60 years old today, you've seen your dollar buying power cut in half. That is unconscionable. And currently, the people on the margins are the ones that suffer the most from our inflationary monetary policy. I disagree with my green friend here that minimum wage is the way to go. You know, my kids are not worth $15 an hour, or they are now, but they wouldn't have gotten jobs. I mean, they got jobs for $8, $10 an hour, my teenage kids, and now they're making $20, $25 an hour. They've learned the skills they wouldn't have had the opportunity to learn had there been a minimum wage.
No one should be left behind, particularly the people who has very low income. We have to take care of them now. This is the time. We have to take care of them now. So NDP is trying to make a minimum wage for the lower income people, affordable home, and then for children, because most of the single parents, they can't go to work because the daycare is so expensive. So our plan is to provide the daycare for a child $15 a day. So that will help the lower income people to put their child to daycare and go to work. That's the way they will involve in the economy. They will pay taxes that will run our economy. So for the lower income people, NDP has lots of good things, including minimum wages, $15 a day, daycare, and affordable housing. Thank you very much.
Number 9, is government too big, too small, or just the right size?
Well, I'm going to use this question actually to talk about the Prime Minister's office specifically, because I do think the Prime Minister's office is too big. It has 260 employees, I believe, which it used to only have 12. It was actually under Pierre Trudeau that it first grew to 56, and now under Harper it's grown to 260. We spend a ton of money on the Prime Minister's office alone. And so I am very excited that actually we expanded electoral boundaries to include 338 ridings rather than the 308, because Canada has grown. So in that case, I think that was a good move. But the Prime Minister's office needs to be cut in half at least.
Yes, government is too big, of course. Listen, after three terms of Conservative government, we now have the biggest, most intrusive, costliest government in Canadian history. Now, this isn't necessarily the Conservatives' fault. They do pay lip service to smaller government and fiscal accountability. However, one of the problems is that there's no one standing on the political stage strongly advocating for the principles that made this country great, saying we need to get back to a culture of freedom, we need to get back to a culture of property rights, we need to get back to a culture that respects individual liberty, and we need to stop playing these games of capitulating to big government programs in order to get votes and buy popularity. So it's too big.
Government people, they are not victim of their own activity or action, as we are. As a citizen, we are the victim, because we pay taxes and we don't get our services. So to get the service properly, if they need those many people, that's fine. But what we see now, that became like something, a pyramid upside down. So I think we should think about it, and we have to do some reform about the size of the government people there. Thank you very much.
Well, I don't think the question is really whether government is too big or too small. The question is we all nobody would be here if we didn't think that there wasn't some improvements that could be made. The question is more, what does government do today that they shouldn't be doing in the future? And so that's where I think the focus has to be on. But if you're going to do that, you can't continue to call for more programs for government to deliver. And what I think needs to happen is that there has to be a more thorough undertaking by the ministers to ensure that whatever their particular portfolios are providing in the way of programs, is that still required today? Because with any government, you have many situations where a program is implemented for a particular reason, and then in many cases, it simply just continues to exist. So I don't think there's anyone sitting in the audience today who would answer that question any differently than say, no, government isn't too big, it should be bigger. Clearly, it needs to be always trying to refine any government.
So as Ed McMahon would say to Johnny Carson when he was Karnak the Magnificent, I hold in my hand the final card. And most of you are old enough to remember that. So I want to with the exception of one person here. Not my last thought. Yeah, this one. So the final question, I'm going to modify. I want to read the question the person submitted. It's timely because it relates to the election. But I want to position this by saying, in a previous forum, the question was, would your party change anything in Bill C-51 or delete the parts you didn't agree on? So I want to read the fellow's question because it relates to where we're going with this. So his question was, I do not understand how the born Canadian citizen with a different heritage can be prevented from re-entering his birthplace, which has always been guaranteed, protected by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom. This unfairly distinguishes from other born Canadians.
Could you speak up? We can't hear that. We can't hear you.
I can't hear you. What?
Maybe I can come and read it for you.
Is there a well-toned hearing professional near you? Right. I do not. So the question that was submitted, and it ties into the big question on Bill C-51, which is appropriate for this election. I do not understand how the born Canadian citizen with a different heritage can be prevented from re-entering his birthplace, which has always been guaranteed, protected by the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom. This unfairly distinguishes him from other born Canadians. This unseen psychological fear of travel is contrary to the Charter of Rights and has negatively affected my future generation's children. Policy of fear is not helping our future generations, so it goes back to Bill C-51, and in particular if you want to address this part of it, or Bill C-51 in general.
Well, I mean, our party was the first, and I was the first leader to come out strongly against Bill C-51. I'm very concerned about the surveillance state. And before Bill C-51, there was another bill called Bill C-13. I don't know if you remember that. It was defeated. It was billed as a cyberbullying bill, but it allowed corporations to break their contracts with you for privacy and give government free access to your information. And so we see this encroachment of the surveillance state as a fundamental attack on the liberty of Canadians. We deserve to have privacy in our homes and in our businesses and in our personal lives. That's fundamental to freedom. And so we would immediately repeal Bill C-51, establish oversight of spy agencies, and ensure that we don't end up, in a 1984 novel.
Bill C-51, it actually divided us. Bill C-51, it created us in such a position that now we have a question that, are we all immigrant here? Is my grandfather who was born here, or his grandfather, or his grandfather? We all are immigrant. If this Bill C-51 is against humanity, so when it's against humanity and you attack someone who has dual citizenship because his parents are new immigrant or something, so how can a person, a people, can support something that goes against humanity? I don't understand. I don't understand the other people. How can they support it when they are passing it? And now they are saying they will review it because this is an election year. So is that fair that people will not vote for them? So what is against humanity? NP said it before it passed as a law, and I can assure you that we will repeal it. Thank you very much.
Well, there's been a lot of hyperbole about seat 51, putting a bucket full of it by the last two speakers. The reality of it is this country needs to bear down in terms of ensuring that we've got safe borders, ensuring that our police have the ability, when required, to get the job done. And I know there's a whole group of people, including a couple of the speakers here tonight, who talk about civil liberties and about the freedom of having the right to pretty much choose and do what you like. Folks, that's not the country we live in. We live in a country where, for too long, those who were involved in criminal activities had too damn many rights. And so what we've done with this particular bill is ensure that the police and authorities have the ability to pursue and prosecute where necessary, and I'm fully in favor of Bill C-51.
Stop the citizen outside the country. You treat all the children equally.
Thank you.
In
You
your
can
boy,
talk to that. Thank you.
Canadians, can somebody explain that to us, please?
That's sorry.
Difference between the old stock and the new stock Canadians.
Go ahead.
Okay, obviously this is a contentious one. The Bill C-51 needs to be repealed, flat out. It encroaches on our rights, it encroaches on the Charter of Rights and Freedoms, and we actually it gives more rights to the spy agencies. It doesn't give rights to the RCMP, it gives more ability to the spy agencies without proper oversight at all. So it needs to be repealed.
Well, there you have it. 15 questions, 60 answers. How'd they do? One fellow stood up and asked one particular question that was related to this one. Unfortunately, we have a limited time frame. That's why you get to corner your candidate of choice or not after we're done here and get more specific answers. But on behalf of the Calgary Leadership Forum, thank you, the four of you, for your answers and expressing your viewpoints. And I turn this back to our moderator, Chairman Brian.
All right, thank you very much, Bruce. We read in advance that the closing 3-minute remarks will be done in reverse order to begin, so we're going to do so. Our timer would like to remind you she is going to stand at 2 minutes and 30 seconds and hold the yellow dollar bag. Show it to everybody so it really is a bag, all right? She's going to sit at 2 minutes and 45 seconds. And she's going to stand at 3 minutes with the yellow bag.
Red bag.
Red bag, red bag. Thank you. You're good, all right, okay, there we go, all right. So, leading off, the first closing remark will go to Tim Moen, Libertarian.
Well, I left the best job in the world back in May as a firefighter, as a fire captain, because I see a looming emergency on the horizon. This is not just a crisis of economic proportions. I believe that Canada has culturally lost its way. We can no longer rely on a strong conservative voice. We've seen this provincially, and we're starting to see it federally. That a provincial or a voice that calls for free market, property rights, principled responses. We've heard from Ron Leipert that he would definitely move through caucus, making moves and working together. I mean, we've seen the result of this. We've seen the damaging result of this. And I understand the temptation to engage in that. But right now, what Canada needs, what we all need, is someone who will stand firm on principles and hold government to account and protect the people. I cashed in my meager retirement savings and I'm not getting a salary to do this because that's how strongly I believe in this cause. This is a calling to me. I'll stand up for you as constituents. I ran into burning buildings for a living. I can run into Parliament and stand up against destructive forces for you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Because now I am meeting the second time here. Okay. Good afternoon, because this is my second time meeting you. First time was good morning. So what I want to say, the Canada, what we dream, what we got from our previous people, our seniors, is not heading towards the same direction. So we need a change. We need a change. We don't make our people fair because we have to leave a room for our children to grow without any fear. Our mind should be without any fear, but everybody, many people, and some people, they're in fear. We have to take care of them. Many people, they're in fear that if they can raise their children properly, we have to take care of them. Then we don't have to put a paper saying that you will be killed if you attack me to an angry animal. Because he doesn't read it, she doesn't understand it. So how do we have to do? We have to protect ourselves. That's why NDP is proposing to increase police forces and other forces to stop any violent situation. And our intelligence branch should be strong that they can stop it before they grew too high. Not putting some rules that some innocent people will be victim. I want to say that for our children, for our seniors, and for ourselves, we need a change now. We have to give them a break, particularly the lower income people and middle class people. If we don't take our share now, the people who are well enough, believe me, we have to go through another reconciliation of 30, 40 years. You can see it. You work a bit in the Constitution and in somewhere else. In this riding, you see there are lots of people, they need help. So we need to help. And NDP offer that one for everybody. Nobody should be left behind. And my voice never will stop until I can make it happen. I have a good family. I have a very nice family life. I can avoid this thing, but I'm assuring you that I will not stop until I say that every children is treated equally and get a better life. Thank you very much.
Ron, you're up.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for coming out here today. And we are fortunate that we live in one of the best countries in the world. And I think that's exhibited every day when we see people wanting to live the life that we're fortunate enough to live. We, despite what Thomas Mulcair says about Toronto being the best city in the country, I think Calgary's the best city in the country. I also happen to think that this particular riding of Calgary Signal Hill is the best riding in the city of Calgary. Let's not get sucked into another experiment. We have a situation where we have had strong leadership for the last 10 years. As I said at the outset, we live in one of the greatest countries in the world, and frankly that isn't an accident. It's been because we've had good government. It's been because we've done things the right way over the last numbers of years, not just the particular government, but certainly in the last 10 years, the Conservative government has provided strong leadership. I want to be your representative within that government. It's going to be a tight election. Every seat is going to be important. And for us, none is more important than this particular seat in the House of Commons. So I ask you to think very seriously about your decision on October the 19th. And I would ask for your support so we can continue to build the greatest riding in the greatest city in the greatest country in the world. Thank you for coming.
Thank you all for coming out today. I'd like to thank the Leadership Forum for putting this on and the Strathcona Community Association for hosting us. And most importantly to you for coming out today on such a beautiful day, because I truly believe it's these forums that are the truest form of democracy, because they allow for open and honest discussion on what's happening in Canada. The Green Party is here because we want to fight to restore Canada's reputation at what we believe is a pivotal time in our history. We need to build sustainability and stability for healthcare, for land use, for water, for industry, for education. The list goes on. These are important to the Green Party, they're important to me, and I think in this election we need to vote and say that they're important for Canadians. We need to vote for sustainable and stable growth for this country. On October 19th, we need to vote green.
Wow, what a great debate. Thank you all very much. A couple of closing comments. First of all, I received a phone call on my home phone about 3 months ago. It was a message from somebody at Revenue Canada in Winnipeg. Muffled voice, number but no extension, so I called back, couldn't find him. A week later, I get another message, muffled voice, a name, an extension number, but it wasn't the correct one. Another week later, and I get another message, so I finally got the correct person, left the message, said, I'm never at home, here's my cell, please call me. A week later, phone message at home. Called again the next day. 2 weeks later, I get a message. So after 11 weeks, I was finally able to return and talk to the person that wanted to talk to me. Now, I happen to believe that for paying public servants, that they should learn fundamental customer service skills if they're asking you for money. So now in its 11th printing, I wrote a book many years ago called Satisfaction Guaranteed, How to Satisfy Every Customer Every Time. I brought 5 copies. One of these candidates is going to be our next MP, and I'm looking for great customer service. So I'm going to present this. We have been blessed by volunteers. The Calgary Leadership Forum is very active. We have 7 volunteers who made this possible. Would you please ask the following to stand so you can say thank you to Dolores Pilsel, our Executive Director, Bruce Lee, a brilliant question panelist, Marilyn Wilson, thank you for being timer today, Allison Springer, Moen, the picture, thank you all for being here, and Henry Jenna, thank you very much for the video. Acknowledge 2 idealists who follow their values and put their time with it, and that's Mark and Ann Hambridge for the volunteer with Fair Vote Calgary and Fair Vote Canada. Thank you for what you do. What's next? We are going to be hosting the Skyview Federal All Candidates Debate September 29th, 6 p.m. at the Castlewood Falconridge Community Association, chaired by Allison Springer. Next, on September 30th, Calgary Shepherd All Candidates Debate at the Jamin Theatre. And thirdly, I'd like to mention that the Calgary Leadership Forum has embarked upon a very ambitious project. We founded a citizens and industry panel for a productive royalty model. Our chair, Chris Yee, is here standing in the back. Chris, would you please stand? If you'd like to be part of this important process, please join us. I cannot think of more critical policy facing the future than of embracing a solid, practical, and workable royalty model. Please come and see us. Finally, former Attorney General Ramsey Clark of the United States once said, when 2 people are always agreeing, one of them isn't thinking. So would you agree we had some great, thoughtful thinkers here this evening, this afternoon with I would like to acknowledge our candidates, and I'd like to acknowledge the volunteers. Presidential, please visit them. Finally, many years ago, my first campaign, I was asked by a candidate running for provincial office, Roy Wilson, if I would like to be his poll organizer. He told me that under me there'd be 65 poll captains and 12 zone directors. And I said, well, Roy, that's very nice, but I've never been in politics. What would those zone directors think if you put me on top of them? And he said, well, what zone directors? You have to go out and recruit them. I said, but what about all those poll captains? I'm brand new, I'm barely a member of the party. He says, what poll captains? You got to go out and find them. So I didn't know I couldn't do it, so over the next 6 months, I recruited 73 individuals. Twisted their arms, begged them, promised lunch, talked to them about policies, did everything I could. And when election night came, we won when our government lost. And I remember that evening talking to so many people saying, thanks for getting me involved. I got a chance to find out how it works firsthand. If you're not involved, this is a fantastic opportunity because I cannot think of a more important election. If you want to take sides, come and join the Calgary Leadership Forum. We would love to have you be part of our process. So, as a final thought, I want to share with you a piece of wisdom that was found. An anonymous statistician in Ottawa wrote this, and I think it really sums up the importance of your vote. Keep in mind, it could be decided by one vote or one constituency. History is very much alive in our time, so I'm going to leave you this final wisdom. The population of Canada is 32 million, but there are 11 million over 65 years of age, leaving 21 million to do the work and make a difference. People under 16, total 12 million, leaving 9 million to do the work. 4 million government employees leaves 5 million. 100,000 in the armed forces leaves 4 million. Deduct 1.5 million provincial city employees, which leaves in this entire country 3.4 million to do the work and make a difference. Now there are 1,400,000 in hospitals and asylums, or sick, leaving 2 million to do the work. But 1.3 million of these people are unemployed and 600,000 are on welfare or won't work. Hard to believe in this entire country that leaves 100,000 people to do all the work and make a difference. However, you may be interested to know that there are 80,000 people out of the country at any one time. And 19,800 people are in jail. So that leaves just 200 people to vote and make a difference. And by my count, that's exactly the number of people we have here today. Thanks for being here, ladies and gentlemen. We are adjourned.